Hello friends, and welcome to Figure Study, where we are appreciating the form in transforming toys that I'm not entirely sure how to qualify just yet. Today, taking a look at the Burley / I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, figure variant of the Unrustables, also known as the Unrustable Bastards. This was a Kickstarter project that I helped fund. It feels like a lifetime ago, but obviously they met their goal and they produced their figures, and the figures are awesome, and I'm going to be talking about this particular one. So this one's going to be a little bit different than some of the other figure study videos in that I'm actually going to show off some accessories and stuff like that, because they just came out. Like there are still some backers that haven't received theirs yet. They're not available in stores just yet, with a few exceptions, and since there aren't a ton of videos on this already, I figured I might as well go into a little more detail. First thing to note, there are a bunch of different characters in the fiction, and most of them are this figure. The only difference is the head for the rider and the head for the robot mode. And as I understand it, this is the basic version that everyone's going to be able to get their hands on eventually, and then there are certain character variants that, again, it's just a different rider face and a different robot mode face, but like everything else is the same. There are some variants that specific online retailers are getting. Other than that, there's also the bad guys, known as the Spectre Rogues, and there's the Spectre General figure, which again, it's the same exact thing, but an actually different color scheme and different faces. That one I have ordered, but it's not coming in yet. And then there's also a very special variant that I am very, very excited to get my hands on, called Otomo, that is an Akira homage. So the bike is actually red and you get stickers, and it's very cool. But anyway, these figures were produced by a company called Mayhem Mechanics in conjunction with Moss Toys, who have done a few different third-party Transformers figures in recent memory. And these are a new thing. Like, this does not tie in with Transformers. It does not tie in with, as far as I know, the third-party transforming figures fiction or anything like that. It's its own thing. And this is, for the first figure, really, in the set, this is really cool. Just looking at it aesthetically, like, it's a nice, good-sized motorcycle. It looks appropriately just awesome and futuristic with these really nice big tires. It's got a wide enough base that you don't have to worry about a kickstand. The rider sits on it very nicely. It's very, very cool. And it's fun. Like the motorcycle mode is very cool with the rider and everything. And I really like how pretty much this piece here and the handlebars are the only bits of real kibble in robot mode. Virtually everything else is going to be parts of the robot, and that's pretty amazing just how well it all tucks away and hides like that. So before we start doing any kind of fancy detail stuff, let's just get the size comparisons out of the way. So here we have the bike and rider with our default size amiibo and a Titan's Return Deluxe. So you can see that is a pretty decent sized bike. Getting the amiibo out of the way, we can do a bit more of a direct comparison. So we'll move the motorcycle back here. And yeah, it's I will say, you get your money's worth with these things. You really do. Like, the build quality is there, which I'll get into later, but like, you get a lot of plastic for your dollar. All right, so let's start things off with the rider himself. So let's just fix this real quick. And here we have the little rider all by his lonesome. So the rider figure itself, it's like, I like the look of the figure, and it's very posable, but the main attraction is really the bike. So it's really not a lot to go into here other than articulation, but it's a nice looking robotic-ish thing. Very posable. Like, even with the, like, you can kind of move the shoulders back a bit, which I was like, and there's what qualifies as an ab crunch. So yay for people who like ab crunches. The rider is just, it's a very simple but well-detailed toy. You get some, like, a little bit of molding in the shoulders and the chest there. Here you can see this is one of the faces that the set that I have comes with. It actually comes with a second face right here. You can just pop in and out. This is the face that I've gone with because I like the visored face, but that is an option. And then the other like exclusive, like store exclusives have different face sculpts as well that you can swap in and out. So you got options. Most of what's here, like there is some detail, but most of it I think is really more to facilitate the transformation. But the color scheme works, like that sort of darkish gray with the black, and just like that little bit of silver and red for the face. Works pretty well. And like I said, it's a posable figure. A very posable figure. A very, very posable figure. I mean, realistically, I'm just going to have him sitting on the motorcycle, which he can do quite well, as you've seen. But it is cool just how flexible this little guy is, and not all of it is to facilitate the transformation, too. So, I mean, they didn't have to make them as posable as they did, but they did. And in terms of accessories that this guy gets, aside from the motorcycle itself, he actually has little sidearms that are pegged onto either side of where he would sit on the motorcycle. Come on. There we go. And yes, that was where one was, and then turning it around, you can see there's the other one. So he does get two little handgun things, and the molding on these is basic, but it gets the job done. And I also think it's cool that they actually painted the dual barrels silver. It's like such a tiny detail, but they did it, and you can just peg it into his hand and have him do shooty poses or something. I don't know. There we go. The little guy on his own, I guess you can get them separately. They're called the Prospect, and they come with a few more tiny accessories, but the little guy on his own is a pretty darn decent action figure. His transformation is completely pointless because he doesn't actually do anything in his other mode until you combine him with the motorcycle. But yeah, no, just as a standalone posable action figure, he is quite cool. And should do size comparisons real quick. So there he is with the Amiibo and a Titan's Turn Deluxe. So I'll bring this up a little bit. And yeah, he's, I guess you could say, is like a little bit bigger than Legends size. He's a decent size and, you know, looks great on the motorcycle. That's really all that matters. And the one thing with this guy that is, I guess, technically disappointing, but not really, because I still think it looks fine, is the fact that the only paint he gets is on his face, which is a nice nondescript kind of robot visor face. But like there are these pieces here that also have a little paint on them, but these are actually optional pieces. There are, in fact, other pieces that you can get for this guy that you can swap in or out depending on how you want to display your figure. So basically, you also have these pieces here that are more of like a just industrial kind of riveted plate sort of look, and those would go right there. You just like pop that out, pop the new piece in. There we go. So just pop that out, and you know you can see the pegs and the peg holes. You just line it up, plug it in, and there you go. In this mode, it's just sort of like side leg detail, which I mean it's there. It's cool that it's there, but again, just the default rider does not have a whole lot of paint on him, which like it's, again, it doesn't really bother me because the color breakup with the gray and the black works just fine, and there are some nice details molded in there, but just not a lot of paint on the guy. And switching over to the motorcycle, here there is more paint, but there's still not a lot of it. Like a lot of what's here is differently colored plastic, which is fine. Like there are certain bits that I kind of wish were detailed a little bit better, but I mean, it's stuff I could do by myself after the fact, or if they ever do like a repro label set or something, I could do that too. Like you do have the orange and silver on the rims there, and a little silver there. You got the Unrustables logo there. A whole lot of this is just colored plastic, and then there's silver for the pipes here, a little orange there. Some of the orange bits here are painted. So yeah, not a lot of paint on the motorcycle either, but again, that's fine. It's okay. I think the wheels, since they are such a prominent design feature, were the things that really needed to get that kind of paint attention, and they totally do. And there's enough color breakup in just like the orange and black that you don't really notice that it's not painted unless you're really kind of looking for it. And then there are some sort of finer details here, like the mesh where the rider's feet would sit. It's mostly all about the shape of the bike, which is a very nice futuristic shape, and totally, like, just looking at this, it's very easy to see why they were tempted to do an Akira homage, because seeing this in red, especially with those stickers, it's perfect. It's pretty much a perfect homage to the Akira bike, so really looking forward to getting that. But anyway, in terms of other extraneous stuff, there is one thing I want to go over real quick with the bike before we do the transformation, and that is weapon storage. The figure comes with a few different weapon types. Like there's shotguns, pistols, and this enormous chainsaw thing. And they can all technically store in motorcycle mode, but not really. There's only a definitive space to store the weapons for 2 things. So that kind of bums me out. I wish there was a way to store all of the weapons in motorcycle mode, or at least in robot mode, but as it is, you only have space set aside to store 2, and that just kind of stinks. But anyway, the way it works is there's a clip right here, and there's another one here, both on ball joints, and these little posts on the weapons that you just clip in, and they sit there. And the pistols are my preferred weapons to attach to the motorcycle, because if you put them in the right spot, they don't really look like weapons, and they just kind of add a nice little extra bit of detail and just a little bit more color variation to the motorcycle mode. And might as well, we'll attach the shotgun so you can see how that looks. So yeah, you just clip it on, which is very tight, and then you could have a shotgun sticking off, and that doesn't look as good to me. The pistol fits very nicely into this spot right here in front of the wheel, and the shotgun just kind of sticks out a bit too much for my liking. So clip that on. Again, it's very tight and kind of scary to do, but there we go. So now we have the motorcycle with the pistols attached. Okay, so that is enough of that. I think it is time to do the transformation. All right, and here we have a combined Unrustable Bastard and his motorcycle. I should have said this before, and you probably figured it out by now, but I haven't been following the fiction. So I think I've got the rider face mixed with a different robot face, because the rider face was the default, and this was the robot face that was the default. So I think I may have the wrong character with the wrong robot, but I don't care, because this is just how I prefer to have it look, and I think that's the whole point of these, is that you get options so that you can display it how you want. And yeah, this is a very cool toy. The combine mode is very solid, and I really like how just the only real kibble that you have on this guy, like I said, is the front windscreen section of the motorcycle and the handlebars. Everything else is pretty much just straight incorporated into the bot mode, with maybe the exception of these exhaust pipes, which I'll get into those in a little bit. But yeah, it works so incredibly well and looks fantastic. Again, here you can see there's not a ton of actual paint It's mostly just the orange and black plastic with like a little bit of silver there, and like some bits of the black plastic is painted orange, some bits of the orange plastic is painted black to kind of incorporate the color scheme a little bit more. But I do kind of want to go in here and maybe do some like just get a little bit more color in there, like maybe do some panel lining in the sternum section there, and down here, the thighs, that kind of thing, just to make the details pop a little bit more. But there are some cool details in here, and before I get to those, I just want to say, like, the silhouette on this guy is fantastic. This is just, and I'm going to be saying this a lot, but this is a remarkably well done set of rider and motorcycle. Like, the way the two incorporate is great, and the rider isn't just like a chest plate. It straight up completes the actual robot mode. Like, you cannot really get the robot mode to lock in without the rider in there, because of the way that the head has to peg down to the top and this bit has to peg in there. Like, it all holds together. The entire torso basically needs the rider to hold together, and that's really cool. Like, it's not just a superfluous thing, and it's got just a really cool style, really cool look. The silhouette on this guy is very neat. It's a bit lanky, but that's okay because it's a motorcycle. It just kind of works for me, and I really, really like how they've got the giant tires in the shins there. Like, that's really cool. Okay, now we can take a look at some of those details. So pretty much all of the detail here could be seen in the motorcycle mode. Again, those really amazingly large tires that you see there. Thigh details, they were like on the bottom of the motorcycle, but they were visible. This was pretty much the only bit that was really tucked away aside from the head. But yeah, it's just, it all works together really well. You've got these really nice, grippy 3-finger claw things with, again, some nice little details on there that just aren't unfortunately painted, but, you know, budgets being what they are, that's fine. And these little canisters sticking off the arms, which at first I thought would bother me, but really they're fine. Like, they add a little bit of interest to the silhouette, and also you can, you know, they're on ball joints, so you can mess around with them a little bit. These pipes here I kind of wish were painted silver. I think they were in the prototype, but again, budgets. I'd much rather have the figure at the price point they're at than have the figure cost even more or suffer for some paint applications, so we're good. And now here you can see the shin sections of the rider become the chest of the robot. And this is where those panels actually come into play. So there you can see how they are, you know, right now, but then you could swap this in on one or both sides, and that would kind of change the look a little bit more and, you know, give you more options. For the face, the robot mode face is just, it's a really neat kind of visor bit. Like, I don't know how best to describe it, but just like, I really like this design, and there were other options. There are always other options with these toys. Like, as I said, there's the original faceplate, which is cool. I like the skull design. It's a little bit, I don't know, I kind of wish it was stretched a little bit more across the top there. Maybe it was a little bit brighter because it seems kind of faded, but it's still a cool overall look. And then you get this face. It's more of a human-ish robot face with the visor, and it's fine. And then here we have another one, which has a bit of a battle scar there and eyes instead of a visor. And it's like, these are fine, but in my mind, this is supposed to be a giant combined robot thing. And I feel like if it's a robot, it should have a more robotic-looking face, not just like a humanish face that's silver, which is why it was basically either that one or this one. And while I really love the skull plate for that, the reason I wanted to go with this one is because I really like that little splash of color that the green gives the figure. There's just something about looking at this combined mode in its entirety, and just, you've got the orange and black everywhere, and then a little bit of gray for the chest, and then just like that nice pop of green for the face. It works really well for me. And for accessories, you've got the ones that I mentioned before, like the shotguns and the giant chainsaw thing, and the pistols, which are currently clipped to the back. And now the storage in robot mode, I think you can get away with a little bit more because they're kind of tucked around the back, but I still wish that there were more spots to store the weapons in the combined mode. I mean, there are, like, I've heard there are ways to like fan mode it. I think like the handles for the pistols can kind of slot in here, so it works kind of like holsters and stuff. So it's like, it's doable, but I wish there were some more like specific locations to like that were actually meant to hold the weapons on this thing. But still, very cool. And surprisingly posable. Like, the ball joint on the head gets quite a bit of expression to it, and decent amount of looking down, a lot of looking up. I know I don't normally cover articulation, but in this case I feel kind of compelled to for a couple of reasons. Because, first of all, there aren't a ton of videos of these guys up yet, and why not? And also because, as strikingly posable as even the larger combine mode is, there's this weird thing with the arms that kind of bugs me in terms of posability. For the handlebars, you can move those out of the way so that they don't really, block anything, but like, because of the way the arms are designed, you've got this bit of plastic here that knocks into this. So when you're trying to move the arm up, that won't work. You have to kind of hinge it up like this in order to get the arm going out like that. And that's a little bit awkward. I mean, yeah, it's nice that you can kind of adjust the shoulder height doing that, but it's still a little bit irritating. And that just kind of makes articulating the shoulders a little bit cumbersome. Bicep swivels are fine, although for whatever reason, the swivel on this one is significantly tighter than the other one, and it's not what I'd call scary, but like, I do tend to be careful with it because I don't want it to snap on me. And the other weird thing about the arms is these elbow pipes. I really wish that these could like spin around, like spin around this way or flip down or something, because just trying to get them to stand there, if you try to angle the arms too much, these will bump into the backpack. And it would be mildly annoying if that's the only issue, but they're painted silver. So I'm worried that the paint might get scratched off trying to pose him in simple, like, standing in place poses. But, it's overall, in the grand scheme of things, a very small nitpick for a very, very cool figure. And off to the side here, because, as you can see, he becomes a very big figure. That decently sized motorcycle unfolds into a quite tall robot. Not quite Masterpiece Optimus Prime height, but still a very decently sized robot. And yeah, it's just, like I said, you get your money's worth with these things. Right, let's see. I think the only other thing to cover really is weapons. So, just pop this and this off of there. And they have fold-out handles, which is nice. Very convenient. And they aren't quite Masterpiece-like, but they use a similar idea where you've got these pegs on the handles on either side of the handle. And then they've got peg holes on the insides of the hands, both the top and bottom portions. So, and just peg the gun in there, and that holds quite nicely. And then can curl the fingers a bit. And this is one other thing with the articulation that I was kind of not bummed about, really, but like, it is a thing that it's kind of like with everything else, with all the other articulation that both the rider and the combined mode have. I was kind of disappointed to find that the fingers aren't on ball joints. I know it's a silly, dumb thing, but it's just like, I really wish I could do a thumbs up with these hands, and you just can't. You cannot do a thumbs up. I'm sorry. The way they work, this does not move anywhere but this way. So that's all you can manage. It's fine. And yeah, it's very cool. The robot mode just looks great as is, looks even better armed up. And as I may have said before, and you may have seen in the promo shots for these guys, they are pretty darn well articulated, even with being like a large transforming motorcycle robot thing. These things are just fun to mess with, like posing them, messing around with the accessories a little bit. And the transformation, I enjoy doing the transformation, and I think both modes look really cool for different reasons. So I keep transforming them back and forth because I can't decide what to display them in. Because the motorcycle looks great with the rider sitting on it, looks great. And because the rider's so posable, you can get some really neat poses in that mode too. This looks freaking great. And you can get some really great poses out of this too. And yeah, it's just, for a line that's just its own thing, not coming off of Transformers of any kind, It's really, really well done, and I love messing with these things. As I said, my only real nitpicks are really superfluous things, like I wish there was a little bit more paint detail in here, but again, I feel like the main draw is those wheels and tires, and they totally did that, so, yes. And the slightly weirdly limited articulation with like the fingers, the shoulders, and the elbow pipes just kind of getting in the way sometimes. But really, it's just, again, those are just nitpicks. This is a fantastic toy, and yeah, the other versions of the toy are this toy with just either a different color scheme or different face options. But the core toy is exactly the same. Like, there's no remolding, no nothing, just possibly a different paint job if you've got the Spectre General or the Otomo variant, or in the case of if it's just the other bastards, it's exactly this with just different faceplate options. So, not entirely sure how much anyone's going to want to collect the entire line because all the different individual figures are so similar, but as a standalone thing, this is very cool, and it's cool enough for me to not mind at all the idea of getting one or two other repainted versions of it, because yeah, it's repainted, but there's enough personality that you can get out of these guys with the posability and the different modes and the accessories that it doesn't really bother me. I was going to talk about this earlier, and yeah, the build quality on this is fantastic. Like, nothing about it feels delicate. The plastic is very nice and solid. Like, the best I could compare it to is like, say, Make Toys or Mastermind Creations quality plastic. It's very, very nice and sturdy. With the exception of that one bicep joint, everything is tight but not scary, and nothing's really loose. Like, the loosest joints that I think this guy has are his elbows, but they're not so loose that I actually have to worry about him not being able to hold anything up. Like, as you can tell, he can hold a pose with no problem. Very, very well made, very sturdy, and I don't know how many other ways I can say, if you decide to go in on any of these, if you get any figure from the line, you will get your money's worth. That said, I think I have carried on long enough. So, that has been my look at the Unrustable Bastards, whatever you want to call them, Burley, and I think it's Iride something. I don't know, but this is the basically the stock version that I think is going to be available everywhere once these things become publicly available. If you're interested in other characters, the best place to go is either to the Mayhem Mechanics website itself, which I will link below. They have a store where you can order some figures. I think they actually have a few of the get all of the figures sets available, but that's very expensive, just so you know. Other than that, you can check some other specific retailers. Like, I know The Chosen Prime and TF Source both have their own kind of exclusive versions of the Unrustables that they're getting, which again, it's this figure but with different faceplates. So, something to keep in mind if you're interested. Anyway, that is it. So, what do you think? Were you a backer? Were you thinking of backing it and just didn't because you didn't want to take the chance, or didn't like what you saw, or just weren't able to? Are you looking forward to getting these things once they're available? If you do have one, what do you think of it? Do you have any QC issues? Do you have that weird tight bicep, or is everything fine with you? Have you found better ways to store the weapons? Do any of you out there actually have a Spectre General? Because I'm curious to know what you all think, because based on the promo shots that I've seen of that thing, it's like super white and just kind of almost looks bare because it's so white. Let me know what you think. And as per usual, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Any combination of those three would make me a happy Rob. Remember, art is more than meets the eye.